This is an Introduction to English Grammar Part 15. My name is Karen, and this is for a course given at the University of Utah. We'll be looking today at adverbs. So adverbs, they modify verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and sentences. Prescriptive rules about good, bad, and well don't fit the way native speakers use them. So we're going to be looking at these two things. So what they modify, and then this one specific prescriptive rule about good, bad, and well. So here are some examples of how adverbs modify things. So remember, modify means to give information about. Okay, so here we have some adverbs modifying verbs. The adverbs are all underlined in this slide. Okay, John walked deliberately to the store. It's giving us information about how John walked. Okay, when they modify adjectives, we have an example like, your friend is quite cute. It's giving us information now, not about the verb, but instead about the adjective cute. We saw in the adjective presentation that these things are called intensifiers. Okay. They can also modify adverbs, again as intensifiers. So Ed makes his decisions quite impulsively. And then as a sentence. Sentences for me are the ones that are easy to identify, but for some reason my brain has trouble calling them adverbs. So the truth is, you need to know that I actually think adverbs are one of the most difficult things in our grammar to identify. Here we have the examples for the sentences. Secondly, the British Empire was an example of excess. Okay. Furthermore, the people of that state were shocked. So the underlined portion here is modifying the entire sentence and not just one word in particular. These are some of the adverbs that modify other adverbs and adjectives. Remember, we call these intensifiers. Okay, very, to, really, extremely, quite, rather, so, etc. Okay, when I was growing up in junior high school, my teacher always said we couldn't use words like this, that they weren't concise enough. It was just adding extra meaning. Okay. When we look at adverbs, they can take different positions in the sentence based on their function and what it is that they're describing. So we have adverbs of manner, which is telling us how something is done. Those come after the verb. We have adverbs of place, which is telling us where something happens. Those also come after the verb. We have adverbs of time. They often come at the beginning or end of a sentence. So these are telling us when something is happening or going to occur. We also have adverbs of frequency. Frequency is telling us how often or how not often something is occurring. These come directly before the main verb. Okay. They can also come after the verb be if there's no auxiliary. So we are usually here. And they can come after the auxiliary and before the be if we have if we have both an auxiliary and a to be verb that's supporting the verb. We also have comparative and superlative forms in adverbs similar to what we saw in adjectives. So in adverbs, we usually use the words more and most to come before the adverb instead of adding something to the end. Partly because we already have some morphology that occurs on the end. Often adverbs end in ly. Okay, they don't always, but often they do. When they end in ly, then we add more or most before the adverb. But there are some one-syllable adverbs that are called flat adverbs. Here are some examples. Hard, fast, loud, slow, high, low. So something like she runs fast. We don't say she runs fastly. Okay, so she runs fast. What do we do when we're comparing how fast someone is to someone else? Do we say she is more fast than he is? Or do we instead say she is faster than he is? So just like the adjectives that we saw before, when we're doing comparative and superlative forms, generally if it has one syllable, so these flat adverbs, we're going to add something on the end of the word. Okay, so higher, lower, slower, faster. And when it has more than one syllable, we're going to add more and most before the adverb. However, so I told you that most adverbs end in ly. However, some adverbs seem to be dropping this ly. And so sometimes when we hear people in speech, they might say something like, she's saying dramatic, instead of she's saying dramatically. Okay? For me, my mental grammar says that dramatic is not okay in that context. But I have other contexts where I've accepted flat adverbs or have created them myself. So prescriptivists frown on the use of flat adverbs other than those that were described on the previous slide, that is incorrect, like we're turning an adverb into something else, like into an adjective. Okay, so those are not acceptable. Here is some information about good, well, and bad. These are kind of tricky for native English speakers to use. It's another area where our mental grammar disagrees with what prescriptivists say our grammar should be or what our usage should be. So we have an adjective form and we have an adverb form. So the first thing that happens is sometimes people use the wrong comparatives and superlatives. So they add something onto good, like more good or gooder, instead of changing to the word better. The other way that native speakers violate this is that we use the wrong part of speech. So we might use the adverb instead of the adjective form. Okay? So let's take a look at some examples. Okay? That was a really good dinner we ate last night. Many people think that he is a bad man. Here we have them both as the adjective form. How do we know that they're the adjective form? Well, because they are coming before the noun inside of the noun phrase. So remember, adjectives modify nouns and describe more information about the noun. In the adverb form, we have these two examples. Jennifer plays the washtub bass very well. Frank plays the saxophone very badly. They're describing now not a noun like saxophone or bass. Instead, they're describing the verb, how someone does something. And so they should be the adverb form. Okay. Here are some examples of why this is tricky for us. Okay. The confusion is aggravated by the fact that the word well can also be an adjective, meaning in good health. So something like you could either be sick or you could be well. Okay. And has the same comparative and superlative forms as good. Well functions as both an adverb and as an adjective. Good is always an adjective. Well is an adjective referring to good health. When it is describing anything other than good health, well is an adverb. Okay, so here are some examples. You look well means that you are in good health. Okay, you write well means that you write skillfully. So in the first example, we have it as an adjective, and in the second example, we have it as an adverb. Okay, let's see if we could apply it to this context. She sings good. My mental grammar says that's okay. Prescriptivists say no, that we instead should say she sings well because it's telling us how she is singing. Okay, let's look at some other modifying adverbs. So these are adverb phrases where we have additional information that's giving us information about the adverb. So walk very carefully. We have walk, which is our verb, very carefully, which is our adverb phrase. And inside of that, we have an adverb carefully, and then an adverb very that is modifying carefully. It's telling us how carefully to walk. So now we have an adverb that's modifying an adverb. We call that an adverb phrase. Okay, she reads rather fast. We also call those, remember those adverbs modifying adverbs, we call them intensifiers. Here we have some adverbs with adverb complements, okay, words that complete the meaning of the adverb. So fortunately, for me, we did not have a test today. So we could leave out that complement. We could say something like, fortunately, we did not have a test today. Fortunately is modifying the whole sentence. When we add the words for me, it's giving us additional information about the adverb fortunately. So fortunately for me, we did not have a test today. Okay, that's again an adverb phrase where we have both an adverb and an adverb complement. So what's important for us to know about adverbs? Adverbs can modify almost everything. I often have been heard saying to people that if you can identify everything else in the sentence, the preposition, the noun, the verb, then whatever's left over is probably an adverb. Again, it's kind of something I struggle with too, even though I've been doing this for many, many years. Adverbs are kind of tricky and sneaky, and it's hard sometimes to identify them. The most common way to identify them is with the ly ending, but that is not the whole story.